Hey guys, welcome back to my channel where I review horror books with a supernatural focus. In today's video, we have a little bit of a different setting because I wanted to do a bit of a slideshow presentation for you because I'm going to be reviewing all of the Adam Nevill books that I have read so far. It's 8 in total, but we're only doing half of them today, so just part 1. If you're not a Nevill fan, that's okay. Different strokes for different folks. I just want you to read things that make you happy, but maybe there might be something here to entice you to try again. After listening to the Reddening on audiobook, it really got me thinking about my favorite author. And I just really wanted to revisit the books that I had previously read. I enjoy a lot of writers, but there's just something about Adam Nevill who just really ticks all of the boxes for me when it comes to really dark supernatural horror. His stories are so bleak. They're strange, they're haunting, and they're brutal. I admire the way that he manufactures the supernatural. It's weird and unique, and it really works with the environments, like almost as if it's really a part of them. And of course, it always gives me the chills. So let's begin and talk about what is my number 8. But before we jump into that, be sure to like and comment down below. Are you a Nevill fan? Which one is your favorite book? And be sure to subscribe if you'd like to. So my number 8 is Wyrd and Other Derelictions. This is a collection of 7 short stories that have no people in them. So imagine an empty film set or a theater stage performance when all of the performers and the actors and the crowd has long gone home. This is very different than anything else he's ever written. There's no people, and that's a huge challenge. How do you write a story with no people, no characters at all whatsoever?
Finally, all alone.
So I think this really was for a certain type of reader who was willing to put in a little bit of the extra time to really find out what's hidden in these scenes, because it is like a hidden object game, sort of, where you're looking for clues to figure things out, and that can be really fun for a lot of people. So it was definitely oddly fascinating and interesting, and a really, really cool concept, the Reddening. And I just recently read this and reviewed this, so I won't go too heavy into it, but this story centers on a string of mysterious disappearances and potential suicides in this little county called Devon. It also has these caves, and in these caves they end up finding all of these like prehistoric or very, very ancient remains of some type of early people. And all of the evidence in this cave is really pointing to, you know, there's probably some cannibalism going on here, some rituals, things like that. The 2 key figures are Kat, who is a journalist, and Helene, who's looking for answers about her brother. And they both come to this realization, kind of against their will, that there is something really, really heinous going on here. So this story is definitely bleak, like real bleak, real brutal, super gory. And it is about cannibalism.
I like my steak rare.
And cults. And it's pretty intense. It has a lot of details, let's say. This is also about a small county that has a horrible secret, and we have to figure out what that is. So it's very tantalizing. But my favorite thing about this was this whole entire like almost like essay or just background on these remains that they found in the caves. It was truly fascinating. I didn't really particularly like the ending for this one too much, but I love that part of it. Cunning folk. So this story is about a family in peril. This is about Tom, who is unemployed, and his wife Gracie, who is the sole provider of the household, and their little daughter Fiona, that moves into a rundown DIY type of house in a very nice, quiet neighborhood, with the plans of renovating it to be the perfect home for their daughter and for themselves, and just to have some peace and quiet.
I can do this.
But right away, Tom begins to have serious issues with his elderly next door neighbors. Things get so bad that Tom can't even focus on renovating. He's disappointing his wife. She's making him feel like he's a useless bag of But the more he tries to ignore his neighbors, the more he wants to murder them. With their strange behavior and their demented accusations and insults, who knows what they're really up to over there? It definitely will remind you of the times when you've ever had a bad neighbor who just wouldn't leave you alone. It's kind of funny because you can totally relate to the frustration of what it's like to be in a situation like this. And then also to be like the family member who is really trying, but is just not able to do what they have to do because there is this other thing that's pulling them away. It's almost driving him into madness. For instance, this neighbor, they have the most beautiful gardens. You walk in there, they're thriving, they're healthy, they're tall, they're just robust, and everything feels like a whole entire different world in their garden. But in Tom's garden, it's completely trash. It's dirt. Nothing will grow. No matter what he does, everything dies. And all he wants is this like beautiful garden for his family, and it just won't happen. And he has this feeling that they have something to do with it. But what? How? So this energy of like him, kind of fighting with them, and it can be really funny. At the same time, though, you're just feeling so bad for him. And I think this is like one of those moments where it was a little gut-wrenching, because I think we've all been there. You know, when you're like, I know someone is doing this to me.
How can you not see it? It's right here.
So this poor sap, he's really trying to figure it out. So it has these funny moments. Like there's another moment when there's a head that goes flying through the air, and I thought it was hilarious. And I don't know if I was just catching Tom's madness, because maybe at that point in the book, I was just like, foaming at the mouth as much as he was about everything that was going on. But I thought it was so funny. There was a playfulness here that I don't think I've really sensed in other Nevill books, but I really liked it. Also, the husband next door, he dresses really funny. Like he dresses almost in this like 16th century Renaissance kind of clothing or something. And it was just really, really like quirky and bizarre and just kind of playful, honestly. It was really cool. The other element here is that there's something about the wild. Like behind their houses, there's like some woods. And this is like the wilds, and there's something special about it. And there's this hint of like the magic of nature and things like that. It is a folk horror story, so it makes sense. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny and stressful and very, very relatable, especially I think for dads. Apartment 16. Now this is one of my early reads. I can't remember if I read this one first before Last Days, but this is one of my early introductions into Nevill. Now, this book is really interesting because Nevill has talked about this book before and has shared insight about the origins of this book. A lot of it is based on his own experience as working as a porter in this really classic building that he was working at. And he has a quote that says, "But this book is for real. It was forged in despair and hewn from compulsion." So this story is told through two perspectives. One is April and one is Seth. April is a vintage clothing reseller, and Seth is a porter, and he's also a painter. April has inherited her great aunt's estate, which is like this apartment in this really posh London building. However, April ends up finding her aunt's diary and is really shocked by what she reads in there. And her apartment is also kind of in squalor, and this is something that makes April very upset. And she right away picks out a name in the diary to kind of blame like what happened to her aunt, who is this long dead painter named Felix Hessen. As April delves deeper and deeper into finding out what happened to her aunt, there are these supernatural forces in the building that seem to be trying to stop her. Meanwhile, Seth, the porter, the artist, he works in this building, and he becomes, for some reason, entranced and obsessed with Hessen's apartment. And this leads him into this very self-destructive mode, which is really fueled by his own aspirations, what he wants for himself as an artist.
Obsessed? Who's obsessed?
What I really liked about this story was about these cursed paintings. And these paintings were inspired by Francis Bacon. So you know already that They're going to be dark and twisted, gory and insidious. And I think this is where I started to realize that I have a thing for like haunted art. And we see haunted art pop up again later on in another Nevill book, but I really like the haunted art thing. And I think it has to do with like individuals who feel compelled, you know, to make something, and it has, I don't know, their energy imbued in it or whatever, you know, there's something fascinating about it. So that really, I think, opened the doors for me there. This book also has like these surreal moments. For instance, Seth goes up to one of the apartments because, I don't know, I can't remember if he needed something or they needed something, but he goes up there and he knocks on the door, and this woman opens, and she's like, you know, she's an older lady, and she usually kind of like, you know, she has her makeup and her hair and all that kind of stuff, but this time she was a little different. And it wasn't really like this picture, but she was bug-like, and that's very bizarre and very psychedelic, and it just added this weirdness. And I like when he does this. I like when he adds these weird aspects, because I think life is weird. So I think it totally makes sense when you're pulling it into supernatural situations as well. The April character, to me, I think is one of the most flattest female characters that I've read so far. She was very one-dimensional, and she didn't have a lot of depth or personality or anything like that. She was just like really pretty and young. So she was very eclipsed by Seth. Seth was such a much more intriguing character. The supernatural in here is so good. I think Nevill really knows how to practice restraint, and it's, I think, in the emptiness of the space, the negative space, that his words work so well. I'm not really sure how to explain it. It's just, to me, I don't know, it works really well, and I like it a lot. One last thing about this book is that he did say that he had a memoir, or he was working on a memoir or something about this building that he worked in. And he shopped it around to a few different publishers who weren't interested because they said it was too dark, too weird, too whatever. So I would like to ask Adam Nevill to maybe think about, I don't know, bringing that back, because I think it would be an amazing companion, obviously, to this book. And I am dying to know, because I know that he mentioned he worked with a lot of eccentric people in the apartment complex. So I put out a humble request into the universe for this memoir. So that is it. That is it until the next video. We'll talk about the next 4 books. I really enjoy talking about my favorite authors. It's not because I think that they're the only author in the world, or they're the best and they're better than everybody else or anything like that. It's just really like finding an author that makes you happy, and like you feel like you can pick up any one of their books and have a good time. So anyway, please take care of yourselves, look out for each other, and I will talk to you next time.